All right, welcome back to the Run.down over here on the Strickland Podcast Network and the Strickland YouTube channel. I am your host, Samuel. I got with me Jeff, aka Frank Barrett119 on Twitter. Knicks win 118-88 against the very shorthanded Orlando Magic, and we're shorthanded ourselves, so I mean, not really, but not really much to say there, but pretty good game all around from a lot of the Knicks young players. We had IQ leading things off with a 20-point triple double off the bench. Great to see him get that triple double. I was really rooting for him to get those last couple of boards. I know it was kind of hard with Taj coming back in the game. Apparently, that he needed to get some minutes down the stretch, but yeah, pretty good, great game from him. Along with two steals. Shooting percentages weren't too shabby, but could have been better. But it's whatever. It's at the end of the season, so it doesn't matter much. Obi with another great game, 20-8, back-to-back 20-point games, first time in his career. 4 for 10 from three. The three ball's really hitting for him as of late, which is really good to see as well. RJ Barrett really bounced back from that pathetic performance last game yesterday with a 27, 5, and 6, one steal, 45% from the field, hit three threes. And we got Mitch Robinson with 12 and 10 and 8 stocks tonight. So he looked pretty good bouncing back from a bad game yesterday as well. So it was good to see a lot of guys bounce back from those bad performances yesterday. And I mean, it's against the Orlando Magic, but I mean, we'll take it at this point in the season because, it's good to see these guys making these strides and be able to bounce back from bad games. How'd you feel about tonight's game?
Yeah, that's really the important thing. The win, like, it's great. Take it or leave it. Obviously, like I'm never pro tank or like pro root against the team, but the win doesn't really matter. It's just about seeing sustainable things from the young guys that we can carry into next season. And I think you saw a lot of it. I think quickly's passing and connectivity continues to take a step forward. Um, there was a play when him and Obi had a give and go, and Mitch was waiting for the lob, but Bamba kind of cut it off. And IQ was in the air, and he expected the lob to be easy, and he adjusted in the air and kicked it out to the left corner for to RJ for a three. And I just think that just show that a play like that shows he's really thinking as like a connector and as a point guard instead of as like the bench scorer he was last year. And so I feel really confident in saying that he's taken a step forward. Is he like a true point guard? Maybe not, but he's definitely still on the table, and he's definitely taken a huge step forward as a connector. Same thing for Mitch. Like, this isn't a good team, but he wasn't just jumping around hunting blocks. He was very, very what's the word? Disciplined, and he held down the paint. And when a block was there, he blocked a person and he patrolled the paint. He did great stuff. And I mean, I don't know what they're going to do with him next year, but it's games like this that make you want them to keep him around, like, and Obi hitting the shot, like you said, like 4 for 10 for three. Making threes is going to be a big part of his value as long as Tibbs sees him as a power forward and only a power forward, because we can't have Obi on the floor with a paint bound center if he's actually a 23% 3-point shooter. Like, that's just, I know it's worked out in small doses this year when he's been on the court, but long term, that's not going to work. So the more comfortable he continues to look shooting the three, the more comfortable and confident he is as a playmaker attacking closeouts. It's just really, really good to see, even if it's versus a bad team.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, even though it's against a bad team, like you said, we like to see these developments keep going. Um, yeah, I mean, just a pretty good, great game. I mean, I think we still got to speak about the one negative I think of this game, and maybe there's a reason to it. And we were kind of speaking to it before we came on here was Grimes and McBride. We spoke about last game how Diacono played more minutes than those two guys usually see on average when they're in the rotation, and lo and behold, they came back into the rotation tonight, and they both played less minutes than Archidiakono played yesterday, which is hilarious considering like this was a blowout, and like this is a blowout like starting the fourth quarter, and like these guys still barely saw any minutes on the court.
Yeah, it just makes no sense. Like, I mean, Burks played really good. So this isn't Burks trash. Like he was really really good. Um, but uh he played both the entire first and the entire third quarter, and it's just like what's the point of that? Like I assume Deuce was out for the game, and then he came in with 9 minutes left in the second quarter, and it's like you have to play him a little bit more. Like what is the point of riding these vets to beating these G League teams? I just don't get it.
Yeah, it did make sense to me. I had missed the first quarter because I was doing something, but when I came back and I saw the box score and I saw that he had played the whole thing, I was just like, oh, I guess this is what's gonna happen tonight. Like, I don't understand. Like, okay, like against better teams and maybe even earlier in the year, but like this point, we're out of the play-in race. And there's nothing to play for really except just to see what we have in our young guys. And credit to him to not sticking with Evan Fournier for so long. I mean, Fournier, from what it seems, didn't have it going much, and he only played about like 15 minutes. So credit to Tibbs for noticing that and cutting that off real quick. But like, I understand Burks had a good game, but like, you don't have to ride him the whole entire first and third quarter, especially when you have McBride. I mean, maybe it's because they're coming off injury, like we kind of speculated before we came live on here, and he's maybe trying to ease them back into things. But even then, he still brought them in garbage time. So they couldn't have been that um he couldn't have been like trying to save them that much where like they couldn't have come in and played more minutes to give because Burks didn't need to play 32 minutes. He could have played like 28 or like 25 minutes tonight and gave some of those minutes to McBride or Grimes.
Yeah, especially Deuce. Like we were saying before, Grimes still looks a little off, and
Mm-hmm.
so like, and he came back before, and then he had to miss some time again because he was injured. You know, if you want to be a little bit more careful with him, I understand that. But Deuce was really good, especially against Fultz. He was our best point of attack defender. And I don't even think it was close. I usually love Quickly's defense, but he kind of struggles with those stockier guards who can kind of use their chest to, like Fultz had an and one against Quickly, where Quickly actually played pretty good defense. He slid with him, but Fultz just overpowered him. And so I think that specifically that type of guard is going to give Quickly a little bit of trouble. And Deuce is just way, way better at handling that assignment. And he showed it again tonight because he can do what Quickly does in terms of fighting over screens and negating screens, but he has the brute strength to not get bullied by these guys. Um, so like when Deuce got pulled with 6 minutes left in the fourth, when the Magic had, oh God, cut it to 23 points and Tibbs put Burks back in, like that's just a joke. And it's so frustrating to like complain after a 25-point win, but like the most loyal fans are the ones who are still watching. The season is lost and we're not watching because we really want to see this team end up 37-45 this season. You know, like we're watching because we want to see what the long term solutions are. We want some hope that the team we care about so much has something to be confident and positive about headed into next season. And like Alec Burks, there's nothing he can do. Literally nothing he can do these last four games. He can score 40 points every game in the last four games. And if he was our starting point guard opening night next year, we would all panic. Like nobody and we all love Alec Burks, but he is a bench scorer and that's what he is. So this is just pointless. And he's wasting the team's time and he's wasting our time, the fans who are so loyal to the team.
Yeah, and it's just like yeah, like you said, we don't like to come on here and complain, but like Thibs manages in every game, win or loss, to give us something to harp on that didn't need to happen. Like there was no reason for that to happen where Burks is playing all these minutes and like he's pulling Deuce and whatnot. It's just like yeah.
And Taj too. Like he like Can RJ really not play any minutes at the 4? Can we not try that? Like, we're playing a G League team, a literal G League team. That was one of the worst performances I've seen of the entire season. The Magic were horrible. And you're telling me that we can't have a rotation that includes RJ playing some small ball 4 just to see what we have there? We have to play Taj 20 minutes? 20 minutes out of position. He's more willing to play Taj Gibson out of position than try and see if our 21-year-old franchise cornerstone has some versatility to him and can play up. It makes no sense.
Yeah, like, man, I can't wait for the season to be done because, like, just so that way we can see what the team does in terms
Right.
of coaching, because like that kind of like that kind of changes how like we approach next season and how the fans like temper their expectations. Like if Thibs is back, of course most fans are gonna be like, okay, maybe we're a playing team, maybe not. We'll see. But if he's gone, then it opens up the fans' minds to more possibilities with like, is the new coach going to play the young guys a lot, because like the young guys are really good and they can contribute to winning, unlike what Thibs seems to believe. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the team does this offseason. Yeah.
And
Uh,
you have to assume that if they keep Tibbs, they're going to make moves that cater to his style of coaching, because like there's got to be a plan. And so if the front office looks in the mirror and says, you know, we understand some of the shortcomings and some of the complaints about Tibbs, but every day we see him coming to work, and we see how hard he works, and we see how hard he gets the guys to work. We see the defensive game plan he gives game in and game out. We're going to give him another season. They have to at least have the humility and self awareness to be like, okay, these are his shortcomings. How can we construct a roster that sort of negates his shortcomings a little bit more? And so I would assume that if Thibodeau's back, we're looking at a meaningfully different roster on opening night next year. I'd be shocked if we entered the season next year with this heavy youth roster and Thibodeau.
yeah, so it's either one or the other. Like it's either the youth, some of the youth are gone, or Thibs is gone. And I'm on the side of hoping that Thibs is gone, because I don't feel it's the right time to move on from a lot of these youth right now. Like there's just like not an opportunity available which gives us like an immediate path to contention if we trade the youth. So it's like keep the youth until something good comes along, and then if something does come along where we can consolidate and enter contention sooner, then you do it. But don't do it just for the sake of like appeasing Thibs, which would be the case if they happen to keep Thibs.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like there's certain dominoes that could fall. Like, you know, if the Jazz lose in the first round and it's bad, maybe Mitchell just says, screw this, I'm out. Um, but like, you know, we give up some young guys and picks for Mitchell, and we make no other moves, and our opening night starting lineup next year is God, he won't start quickly. Okay, let's say we also are able to sign Brunson. I don't even know if that's possible, but let's just say the money works. And our opening night lineup next year is Brunson, Mitchell, RJ, Randall, and Mitch. I guess I don't even shoot. I'd have to look at the contracts to see if that's possible, but whatever. Just that even like what does that do? Like I mean I know that would be really exciting. I'd be excited by that, but like is that a title contender? Is that worth going
Nope.
all in for?
Yes.
I'm not sure it is.
Yeah, let's get to some comments. Hawkeye 420 says he says we don't have enough info on the youth to move them. We aren't close to contention, so I don't know why why they should cater to this bum ass coach. I agree, same sentiments there. I don't really think that we do have enough info. Like even the like we barely got like what 5-6 games of Cam in the rotation solidly to see what we can have with him and RJ in specific lineups. Grime is like as soon as we started to like get some like momentum with our youth, like injuries happened or COVID happened, and then like everything just like wiped away. Like we were entering a good stretch where like Cam had finally entered the rotation solidly, but I mean that was due to Grimes being hurt, and like it was just like a whole bunch of different factors contributed to certain guys entering and exiting the lineup that we don't know what we really have with a full rotation of like a full wing rotation of like RJ Grimes, Cam, and like playing IQ, Obi, and Deuce minutes with those guys and Sims. Cause like none of these guys, their minutes never really like cross related with each other ever. Like,
Yeah, he really doesn't stagger or intertwine these units very much at all. Like, we could have seen something like Quickly, Grimes, RJ, Obi, and Mitch tonight. That would have been a totally reasonable lineup, but I think that played 0 minutes. I mean, shoot, just making it simpler. I was on the Strickland account tonight, and the trio of Quickly, RJ, and Obi played like 10 minutes on the floor together tonight or something. It's like he's determined to not find out what he has in them, and it's just really weird. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't want them to build chemistry. And I saw someone who was like, he doesn't want to play them too much and have people wonder why he wasn't doing it earlier in the season. And it's like, that's as good as an answer as any.
yeah,
I can't think of any other reason why he wouldn't play three of his four best players together as much as possible. But I don't know.
yeah. I mean, RR had said earlier, Quick's emergence makes having no good point guard prospects in the draft sting less.
Sam, is Matherin not like a true point guard? Is he more of like a scoring guard?
He's like more of like a wing. He's like 6'7".
Oh, okay. I thought
Yeah,
I didn't watch Arizona at all in the regular season, but I could have sworn that like in the few
he did a lot of
March.
playmaking for them though.
Yeah. Okay, but he's more of a wing, you would say.
Yeah,
Cool.
and
So
then
who would you
Ivy's like a
who?
combo guard.
Yeah. So who would you say is like the best point guard in the draft?
Ooh, that's a doozy. Cause
Sorry if I'm like putting you on the spot there.
nah, it's just that what you call it? I actually want to pull up the Strickland's board because they do have the list of prospects, and I really wouldn't be able to name straight off the top of my head.
And
Um,
you would say Ivy isn't like a true point guard either. He's kind of like an attacking guard.
yeah, I mean, within our range, I don't really see any like. I mean, there's Ty Washington from like Kentucky. He's probably like the top like point guard prospect that's in our range. Um, and he like a lot of people say it doesn't make sense to draft him. We already have Quickly, and I'm not saying that they're like the same type of guard, but like similar. So it's like, but yeah, other than that, in this is not really a good point guard draft. Oh, there's
Yeah, well,
Kennedy Chandler too from Tennessee.
oh
He
yeah,
started to
yeah, yeah,
pick
I
his
remember.
game up at the end of the season, but even then, he like none of the point guards really like like he said, like having IQ emerge at this point, and I said it on a post game stream with Tyrese. Like even in free agency, like I just don't see a. There's no one that really moves me to the point where I'm like, okay, sign them and start them over IQ or draft this person and have them play over IQ. Like that's the point where it's reached where IQ has played this well consistently for this long, where like going into next season, we don't really have to worry about signing or drafting anyone to put in front of him because there's no reason to do that.
Well, that's a really good point that he raises because IQ has freed the front office up to the point where they don't have to they don't have to force a bad deal because it's a position of need. Now, Quickly has shown enough off the ball and like he's still at his best, like the best he's played. Well, maybe not the best he's played because he's played really well recently, but his longest, most consistent stretch, in my opinion, has come next to Rose. So I do think he's versatile enough that he can play next to another lead guard. So that's not to say that like if for whatever reason Brunson, you know, isn't as expensive as some are forecasting or Brogdon is able to be traded for way less than, it seems like he should be, the Knicks front office has been good at making plus EV deals, and they should still take it because depth is a good thing. But like RR said, and like you just alluded to, they don't have to, and it's really nice that Quickly's put them in that spot.
Yeah. Do you want to go back up here? Some more comments. Jordan Bubs ask, which is more likely to start at point guard next year, Rose or Burks?
Just please be Rose. Just please be Rose. Why, Jordan? Why did you ask that question? Oh, what do you think? I think it's Rose, but I might be answering with my heart.
Yeah, it's tricky because he does love both. But he seems to have grown more of an attachment to Burks because Rose is not available. But yeah, it's really tricky to say at this point. I mean, he does love both to a concerning degree.
It would be quite the full circle year. Like, do you remember that? Do you remember after opening night against the Celtics that viral video where the guy was like, "Don't you regret not coming to the Knicks?"
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that video?
Yeah,
I feel like if Burke starts on opening night next year, there'll be a similar video, but like just trashing the like our fans will revolt. No way we can start Burks next year at point guard.
yeah,
That
yeah. I
would just be
mean,
ridiculous.
I'm just hoping that it's not the case. Hawkeye for 20 says, I look at Memphis and I see a team that has done what we should have outside of Ja over there, who was an elite tier prospect out of the draft. I mean, I would say Triple J.
Yeah, Jaren Jackson for sure. He
Yeah,
was
Triple
the
J was
fourth
their other
overall
elite
pick.
prospect. But other than that, they kind of like built solidly through late picks in the draft. Like Dylan Brooks, Desmond Bain, um,
Melton.
Melton, they kind of stole from the Suns. In a
Oh, they didn't
trade.
draft him? Jesus. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they stole him in a trade for Javon Carter.
Yep. Yeah, you're right.
But yeah,
Oh,
I mean, yeah,
Zaire.
they kind of built.
Zaire they drafted Zaire, right? Or did they not
Yeah, but
even
he
draft
was.
him either?
Yeah, they did. They drafted him in the lotto this
Okay.
past year. But yeah, they really draft like elite players. They just drafted really well and really well enough that they have a bunch of role players like we do right now. But like they just play their guys instead of having them be in warmups for half the year and then deciding to play them when it's too late, like we have. So
Yeah, it's another really great comment because me and you have actually talked multiple times on this chat or on this stream about how the Grizzlies very strongly like juxtapose what the Knicks have done because the Knicks could. I'm not saying that they could be the Grizzlies, but the Grizzlies have similar young talent and have done almost everything the opposite of what the Knicks have done. Not only have they let their young guys play, like you just said, but they've trusted them to play multiple roles. Like, I mean, we were just talking about Zaire Williams. There's no way that the Grizzlies have just locked him into a single role. He's played some small four, he's played some three. Like, he plays in different lineups, and that helps you learn the game faster and it helps you grow because you have to take on more. Now, obviously, there's some people who sink because they can't handle it, but it's a good way for young guys to grow as opposed to just saying, this is what you do well. I'm going to pigeonhole you in this role and just hammer only that. Like, there's no way to grow outside of this box if your coach forces you in a box. Jaren Jackson Jr. is another example of that. Their starting center is Steven Adams. If Tom Thibodeau was their head coach, they would have signed a center who is exactly like Steven Adams, and Steven Adams and that center would play 48 minutes of center. But what the Grizzlies do is Jaren Jackson starts next to Steven Adams, and then when Adams comes out, Jaren Jackson becomes the nominal backup center. So all of a sudden you have Jackson, he's stretching the floor as a power forward, and then he's playing small ball center, and he gets in the paint more when he's small ball center. This elevates their roster and makes their team better. Obviously, it helps Ja Morant is at a level that RJ Barrett is not yet. Of course that helps. But they're 18-2 without Ja Morant, or 19 Oh Jesus, 20-2 without John, 20-2 without John Moran. It's more than him being really good. They're a really good team and they're a really well coached team. And I would argue they've done with their young guys pretty much everything the exact opposite of what Tibbs has done with our young guys.
Yep. I mean, pretty much. I mean, they are the model to follow. I mean, obviously, we're not going to be able to like we're not going to be like contenders in the West if we play all of our young guys, or like contenders in the East if we play all of our young guys. But like, can we at least see what these guys can do together first before we like make a presumption about them and like decide to consolidate pieces, um, consolidate pieces before we even get to see what they have together? It's like that's the most frustrating part.
Yeah, and see them in different roles. We're 3 years in, and RJ Barrett's played what, like 200 minutes as a power forward. That's crazy. He's a slashing wing who he's gotten a lot better as a catch and shooter, but isn't James Harden in terms of like creating step backs for himself. He needs space. Why aren't we? And he's big. Let's try him as a power forward. Any other team would have tried him as a power forward.
Oh, for
Obi
sure.
Toppin, Obi Toppin's played no center. Like Emmanuel quickly is just now getting point guard run late in year 2. Like we need to stop thinking that this one way is going to magically start winning games and need to be open to the idea that the best version of this team hasn't even been thought of yet or hasn't been tried yet, and we have to be willing to broaden our horizons.
And a lot of people, they just see what the coach does and they think, oh, because he's the coach, he knows best. So it's like whatever fans say, they don't know anything. They're not coaching the team, so they don't know what's the best opportunity available. But like a lot of these things that we have said that have come to fruition when a lot of things that we have said as fans, when we see it happen on the court, it actually works to a benefit and it helps the team win. So like it's happened, it's happened way more often that we're right than we're wrong as fans lately.
Yeah, especially this year. And that's been a really frustrating part of running the Strickland account. We've said all season that if we play the young guys more, good things will happen. And it always got pushback. It was always like, no, if Tibbs is playing the veterans, he knows, he knows, he knows. And then Tibbs finally does exactly what we say when we're out of the playoffs. They start playing well, and people are still saying they were right all along. Like, I don't know how is that
Yeah,
possible.
this thing. Oh, Thibs knew exactly when to play them. He knew exactly when to play them. That he knew exactly when they were ready, and that's why he decided to play them now. If he played them earlier in the year, they wouldn't have been ready. All this nonsense about like Thibs, like I just don't understand it.
And we know that's not true. We know from Grimes's first start. We know from Deuce's first start against the Rockets. We know from Sims's first start against the Hawks when he was absolutely dominant. I'm not saying there hasn't been growth. Of course, there's been growth. And I would be willing to bet that Tibbs is a big part of that growth because there is something to holding your guys to a higher standard every single day. And I would bet Tibbs does that as well as any coach in the league because they talk about it all the time. Playing for Tibbs is different. And that's probably his best quality. But it's also sort of a useless quality if you're not going to capitalize on it. What good is all of this growth and development throughout the season if you're never going to see it transpire when the games actually matter?
Yeah. Um. Well, getting back to the game tonight, though, I do want to say I liked seeing Obi shoot with confidence tonight. I mean, like he took 10 threes, and none of the threes were like hesitant or like he just was like pulling them things. And there was one three that he attempted, he didn't hit it, but like he had dribbled and then he stepped back over Robin Lopez, and like he looked very confident tonight. So I mean, it's good to see him. He looks like IQ looked like when Kemba and Rose were finally out of the equation, and he knew that like he had free reign basically. And since
Yep.
Randall's not gonna play for the rest of the year, Obi kind of knows that like, okay, I'm the guy now, so it's like I'm the one guy forward that like he has no choice but to play me. So I can like try out what I need to try out now.
Yeah, and uh to go along with what you're saying, I like that he's doing that, but I also like that he's not like forcing it. You know, he's really treading that line really well, because he could just say, "Oh, I have free reign. I can just start chucking it." But we still see him, seeking out those dribble handoffs, trying to be a connector when our team doesn't really have, aside from quickly, a great connector right now. Um, so I really like how he is processing the game, and he's including, pulling and looking for his own shot more with confidence as well.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, one of my favorite plays of the game was IQ passed the ball to Obi. Obi passed it right back to him as he was cutting, and then IQ passed it to RJ in the corner, and he cashed the three. That was one of
Yeah.
my favorite plays of the game. And it's just like that's the type of stuff that we usually don't see when Randall's out there, because like Randall, he gets that ball and he's probably gonna go right into an isolation from the top of the key or like the top of the wing.
Yep. Yeah, he just doesn't process as quick as Obi does. Obi is always looking to be on the move, and that puts pressure on defenses. And Randall, for better or for worse, likes to take a second, take a beat, and assess the situation, which lets defenses reset. Um, I would argue Randall's best stretch of this season came just around the trade deadline. There was like a 10-game stretch when we were on the road. And we lost a lot of games, like the Lakers game. We went like 3-17, but there was a stretch in there where Randall really, really was energetic every night, and it really seemed like he got out of his own head for that tiny stretch, and you really saw him catch the ball and just go. Um, and I think that was his most successful stretch of the season, and I think that was a big part of the reason why, because defenses were less able to set when he got the ball.
Yeah, and then for some reason I have no idea what happened after that. It was just like everything just turned for the worst at that
Yeah, it was
point.
it was like we didn't trade him, and he was like, "Well, I'm good," you know. Like,
Yeah, let me get to some more of these comments. Hawkeye 420 says, honestly, the biggest draft question I have is what the fuck will Brock Aller do this year? What kind of maneuvers will he do? Trade down, then up, then down. LMAO. I mean, the guy's an enigma. He'll do what's best for the team. I trust him and Walt Perrin to do what's best, because I mean we've seen what they've done in years past, how they've been able to get quality role players late in the draft every year since they've been here. So I have no doubt that they'll do something great. It's they're question marks. We don't know what they're doing, and it's kind of I like it like that, because like we just know that they're gonna find good quality players late in the draft, and that's the most important thing.
yeah, the one thing I will say is I think this is the first time that I genuinely feel like we have to do something. Um, and if they really like somebody, and like you just said, they're what, six for their last six in draft picks or something. They've nailed every pick they've made for a few years now, and I would include Obi in that. You know, were there guys behind him that we would maybe like more? Sure, but at the time, you have to take the context into consideration. Randall had just had an awful first season in New York, and it seemed like that wasn't going to work. And it was a just totally reasonable pick, especially from what we're seeing from Obi right now. Now that he's been kind of freed, um, so yeah, I very much agree with you that I trust the front office completely to make the right pick. But I just think that, and this applies specifically to Aller, because he clearly is the most analytical and clearly is the one who pushes, we have to win this trade. We have to win this trade. Like he is seeking to get $1.10 on the dollar every time he makes a deal. But I think we have to give credence to the fact that consolidation is so valuable this upcoming offseason, and having a clear rotation is so important, that we have to be willing to maybe take 95 cents on the dollar if it means clearing up our rotation a little bit and doing that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Ace Bouchard says best game from Randall in a while. Jordan Bubba says I believe Knicks would be a 6, 7, 8 seed this year if Tibbs let the young guys play and Randall play more like a team player, more effort. I don't think he could control how Randall was playing this year. I mean, Randall was just seemed to like
Yeah.
not really give a flying anything at this point. But yeah, I do think if he did let the young guys play, that we definitely would have been in the play-in race for sure.
Yeah. I agree. And I think Knicks fans really, really underestimated in both these seasons how important what Randall did last season was. Like we 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 have all these hot takes, like, oh, maybe Fournier isn't better than Reggie Bullock, but the Evan Fournier signing would have looked a lot better if he got to play next to 2020 2021 Julius Randle, because we're we still are we're a better team this year than we were last year. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care how hot a take that seems. We're better than we were last season if you're able to
Push the right buttons.
transport Randall from last season into this season. In my opinion, unless you believe unless you believe that somehow Alfred Payne and Reggie Bullock were part of the reason Randall played so well last season, which I don't. I don't believe that at all. I don't see how this team would have been better if Randall matched his output from last season this season.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If like, yeah, I don't know what else to say honestly, but yeah, I mean, that's honestly like that's all it would really boils down to is if Randall plays, or like even if he plays like similar to last year, like not exactly like the numbers are all the same, but like if the effort is still there and like the jump
Yep.
shooting doesn't fall off a ginormous cliff. And yeah, I mean, I feel like that would be the case. And maybe the Kemba experiment doesn't work well still. We move on
Well,
from
but
that.
here's the thing. Here's the thing with that, and I think you'll agree with me here. I said this on the pod. Even that decision starts with Tibbs, because if Tibbs last season saw the writing on the wall and saw that Peyton was as bad as everybody else saw he was, and somehow he didn't realize until game 2 of the playoffs, Quickly would have been the starter. Quickly was like top 3 on the team in net rating last year. And if he was more liberal with his rotations, I know he loved Quickly and Rose together. But remember, we had Quickly, Rose, and Burks all coming off the bench last year. So, and we had, Randall being Superman. So the starting offense, the starting lineup's offense ran through him, and Barrett was a fine B option. So Quickly wouldn't have had to do as much as a true point guard in the point guard role as we saw from Peyton. What he would have done as a starting point guard last year was space and play defense, which Payton was asked to do but couldn't do very well either. Well, he couldn't space at all, and his defense was way overrated. And we would have headed into this offseason. Not only would we have been better last season, but we would have headed into this offseason much more confident that we had a point guard. We wouldn't have forced Kemba Walker onto the team. And in my opinion, that was the first domino in a series of dominoes that led to Randall's struggles this year. Because I think if we opened this season with Quickly, Fournier, Barrett, Randall, and Mitch as our starting lineup, and then Rose, Grimes, Burks, Obi, and Taj as our second unit, I think we're a better team at the start of the season, and Randall is better off for that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, whew, man, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens this offseason because they can't afford to like make any mistakes. RR says I'm for firing Thibs, but maybe the front office doesn't think Johnny is ready to take over the team yet. I mean, maybe that's the case. Maybe not. I mean, we've heard that the front office is like a lot of the front office and Thibs ideals don't really align, which is like probably the case in most situations across the league. with coaches in front offices. We just don't hear about it as often because New York is a little bit more vocal about things that happen in their sports world than other media markets. So, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. It's very hard to see where the front office is at on Thibs.
I'm curious what you think about this, Sam. I was on the pod a few days ago, and Prez asked me if we were definitely going to hire Johnny Bryant, if you would prefer that he gets put in like halfway through next season and gets the interim tag, or if you would rather he got hired or got the job in an off season and got to go into a season like knowing it was his job.
I feel like the latter. Yeah.
Because he could build schemes towards the roster he has rather than, yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah. Because like when you're picking up in the middle of the season, it's very weird. You kind of have to sort of still like build off of the stuff that you have from your previous coach, and kind of use those ideals to still scheme throughout the rest of the year. But if you starting from the starting fresh from the beginning of the year, knowing that it's your team and what you want to do with your team, I think that's better.
And to go along with that, if we choose Johnny Bryant getting the interim tag in the middle of next season, that means the Knicks are off to a bad enough start that the front office wants to fire Tibbs, which I don't think any of us want.
Yeah. Virgil X with a couple comments here. This season sucks and is a failure because IQ hasn't started, and I hate that I'm keeping hope for IQ to start. This is what Thibs has done. He also says just staggering the rotation / lineup would have just make things better. That's the ridiculous thing. Just don't be so gosh darn rigid with substitutions. Yeah, I mean, pretty much nailing it all on the head right there.
Yeah, you are very right to feel that way, in my opinion. You can't disagree with anything you said. IQ not starting makes no sense. There's no reason not to see if what you have in him with the starters playing against opposing starters. There's no reason not to build chemistry with him, RJ, and now Obi and Mitch. There's no reason, as you just said, not to stagger more, not to play guys in more versatile roles. Like our guys' versatility is probably the best thing about our roster, if you really think about it. Our depth and our versatility. We have, 9 to 10 guys on our team who can play multiple positions in theory and play them well. And he doesn't, aside from Taj Gibson playing center and power forward and Burks, I guess, he doesn't capitalize on the versatility of any of these players. He gives them all a role and has them stick to it. So yeah, Virgil, me and Sam are with you, and it's just silly. It's just silly at this point.
Yeah. Jordan Bub says I'm worried that Thibs will be like his job is on the line. Um, because if last 2 years are any indication, it could be another wasted season next year. Yeah, I've pretty much felt that same way. That's why I just want to get rid of him now so that we don't have to worry about him trying to coach for his life next year. Because if he's trying to coach for his life, it means that all bets are off with the young guys probably, and they probably get shorter leashes than anything that we've seen before. So
The weirdest thing is just how much evidence there is that it would help his job if he just played the young guys more. It's just such a stubbornness, such a degree of stubbornness and dedication to his code, and it's something I just don't understand at all. That I don't understand not being that close minded. Um, and I also don't understand why he and the front office aren't on a better page, because the front office drafted all these guys. They traded for Cam. They have to know. They can't think this is like a title team. They have to know the quality of this roster, and that, its ceiling this season was a, second round in the playoffs, maybe. And if that's the case, how can you not sit down your coach and say, look, we want to see what we have in these kids. So do the best you can, play them across multiple roles, let them all get a chance, and your job is not in any danger. We just want to see what these kids have. Go. How can that conversation not happen? I don't understand.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And I feel like that conversation probably has come up before because it feels like there was a certain point where Thibs was like, okay, Sims is going to be the backup center for the rest of the year. And like I feel like that's the point where it happened, but like that's where his like that's his line that he drew in the sand. He was like, okay, Jericho Sims is going to play, but I can't guarantee you anything else, guys.
Right.
And and that's what it felt like.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Sims was his compromise. And it's been a nice compromise. It's been nice to see Jericho. Um, he still. I, I'm curious what you think. I'm a really big fan of when he gets an offensive rebound. He always looks to kick it out, but
Mhm.
I'm now starting to worry that he's kind of passive and like we had one play in the first half today where I quickly pushed it ahead to him and he was right under the rim and he could have just went up for a dunk, but he immediately looked to pass. And I was
Mm,
like, is he just like worried of making is he worried about making a mistake and that's why he
probably,
always, like I kind of
probably.
get that I get that vibe from him.
Yeah, he probably is worried about making a mistake and not having to sit on the bench immediately. So he's just like, you know what, I'm just gonna pass it every time. So it's like,
Right.
but yeah, um, I think that's all we got for today. I mean, it was a pretty good win. It was great to see IQ get that triple double. I know a lot of people say he's not a point guard, but he continues to prove the masses wrong. Doing point guard things. Really took command of the team today. Um, but yeah, it was good to see him get those reps. Hope he continues to get those reps. And I know he's never going to start this year because Thibs just like won't start him, which is like the weirdest thing ever. But how much minutes did he play today? Because I had a thing, I had made a tweet about how I thought he wasn't going to get much minutes today, or he wasn't going to play more than 25.
He played 32,
All right, that's
which is
pretty good.
cool.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not going to complain.
Do you think if Fournier got hurt or like they decided to shut Fournier down, do you think he would just see Grimes as the nominal point guard and go Burks Grimes, or do you think he would move Burks to his natural position and start quickly?
Man, it's so hard to tell with him because it's like he loves Burks at point guard so much because
He
he has all this
does.
lineup data that supports it apparently. But yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I guess we'll see. When's our next game? Is it Tuesday or Wednesday? I think
I
we
think it's
play Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah, we got the Nets Wednesday.
Yeah, hopefully we can play spoiler to their play-in standings at least because they're locked into the play-in. We know that, so
Yeah, but it'd be cool if
we could bump
I
them
mean
down
them
in the
getting them
standings.
getting the 10 seed would be the funniest thing ever. Uh,
Yeah. Um, Thank y'all all for tuning in, commenting. Make sure y'all like and subscribe. Check out the description for everything Stricken related. We got links to the site, the website, the merch site, and the Patreon. All great ways to support us. And yeah, we'll catch y'all after Wednesday. Peace.